Welcome back, freelancers of the Defeated Rescue, and we're back with the Gear Showcase series. We're in the social hub. There's a bunch of people in here. I'm going to go jump out and showcase some gear while they meet and greet. Okay, so we're back in the necropolis with the Interceptor. We are in GM1, and then we are going over, or we're continuing with the salt system, and today we're going over Bitter Harvest. So Bitter Harvest is an upgraded cluster mine, deploys bundles of proximity mines. Cluster mine permanently gain an extra charge. It does about 6,000 damage, recharge is 6, which isn't too bad, and then the radius is 2. That's a very small radius. But for clusters, what that kind of applies to is when the proximity mines come out to each one of them. So they spread out from where the initial deployment area is for the cluster mine, and then the proximity mines have an effect area range of beyond that. It's still a very small area of effect, unfortunately. And then the real downside for me is this one does not have, it doesn't have a, it's not a primer or a detonator, and there's no way to make it like that. Where with the Ranger, they have an ability to make pretty much any gear, anything that has sustained output damage, a primer. I kind of wish all the javelins had something like that, but this one, unfortunately, the Interceptor doesn't. But we'll go ahead and showcase in GM1. So I've had about a good solid week of just playing with this non-stop with the Interceptor, and I'm gonna showcase it to you, kind of like what my thoughts are of it. But basically, the way it is, why they're spawning in, you see how you throw it, and then it pops out like 6 of these little grenades. And they just sit here. They will eventually go off. But here's the thing about them is as you can see, like, they put off a little radius of where they are. In order for those to actually hit an enemy, they kind of have to walk over them. So like, even if and they don't have tracking, so even if I throw them like right at them, like the one hit them, if you killed them, it's GM1, so it's going to do it. But like, I have to, so like right here, if I throw it right here, unless they run through these, it's not going to hit them. I see how he's like going around him. He's like, I'm just going to embarrass you today. He defeated, and he's doing a pretty good job of it. Well, I do a pretty good job of my own, but see how I even threw it right in front of him and didn't hit him. So like, they have to get out, and then they take a second to kind of like arm themselves before they actually are able to do anything. And they don't do any specific like elemental damage. They just do like blast impact type damage. So they're not going to be really useful against like armored enemies or shielded enemies or anything like that. They're just kind of gonna exist. It's nice that their matchwork perk gives them an extra charge, and you can use them as a fair amount of DPS. But the biggest issue I have with them is like positioning. This is one of those things I always talk about. Like, I'm always kind of saying in my videos, like, ease of use is I don't have to like over position myself. Like, it seems like this would be pretty easy, right? But I've had a lot of practice with these because I've been trying to figure out like a good build for it and things like that, so I'm not just like getting annihilated with it. So I've had a lot of opportunity to kind of play around with it. In GM1, it's not going to be much of a detriment to have this, but as you'll see later on GMs, this is going to be very hard to use. So I'm pretty used to like knowing like the enemy types patterns and kind of how they walk and what they're doing. So that's why I think I'm able to get away with throwing them like right at their feet and knowing that they don't move around too much. But so where this could be a potential, like right here, is horrible. Like, they have to walk through it, and I'm just wasting them. And then it's like enemy types like this, like, see how like they just moved? These flying enemy types are going to be really hard to deal with. So like, you see how like, because it took so long for them to arm, and I got frozen. Because it takes so long for these grenades to arm, these proximity mines, it's really hard to use. So I'm just going to do that to get my effect so I can like kill some people. Oh shoot, I don't want to kill him yet. So yeah, like, you see how like this is not even a melee build. Like, I'm hitting them directly on their shield and now below them. So how am I supposed to take this enemy down with something like that? Like this, I'm not saying it can't be done. It can definitely be made a build to deal with that, but I don't know if you noticed, I've had Kara's Talon. I mostly have that for getting my armor back because I need to have a tanky build to deal with anything with it, because this just really isn't doing consistent damage. It does damage, and it does pretty good damage when you can get it to work, but the problem is getting it to work. And then you see how, like, they're basically standing on the entire pile, but they didn't all hit them. Like, they're still, like, right here. You think it should hit them, but it's not. So, I know I killed him with that, and you're probably like, well, you killed him, so what does it matter? In GM3, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about, and we'll kind of discuss it towards the end about a lot of the issues you're going to have with this, and why pretty much, not necessarily nobody, because they're just like Flat Cannon, there's a build for this. It's just very dependent on different things. But we'll go into GM3 and showcase it off. Okay, so we're back in the the Hollow on GM3, and we're still on the assault system with Bitter Harvest. So I'm gonna stick with the build I had, just because it's kind of helped me live, or not go down instantly while in like GM3 strongholds and stuff. And the reason I picked the Hollow is because the group types tend to, when they spawn in, they tend to spawn in groups. So I'm hoping I can just toss one of these cluster mines at their feet, and then hopefully just take out a bunch of them all at once. Although it's GM3, so I'm going to be doing about a third, if not less, damage with this in there. I do have some higher DPS ones that I could be using instead, which I'm kind of considering, but I like having a lot of charges with this. But we'll go ahead and switch over to this one. If I'm having a lot of issues, I'll switch back, or I'll just lean heavier on Kara's Talon. Yeah, the fact that it doesn't detonate or prime kind of is rough, unfortunately, especially because it just doesn't do anything really well, and it's just hard to use, which is already kind of like an issue. But we'll go in here and showcase it off. So like, this is all based on them messing up, is what it comes down to. It's about them making mistakes, which their AI grunts like. It's not like they have a thought process they go through and then there's counterplay here. Like, it's just, you throw their grenades and you hope the grenades kill them, and you hope they walk into them. That's really what it comes down to. It's kind of working right now, sort of. But as you can see, like, even with my damage rolled one, I'm not doing a lot of damage. Okay, so there's a group over here. This is where, like, in my opinion, this is the only way to use this. Like, look at all these over here. They're just spammed all over the place because they're not doing anything. Now I got a tankier Interceptor, so it's not a big of a deal. It didn't even fully take down a shield, and they pretty much were, like, right on top of all those. Okay, so it got them down to about half health after it took down their shield. And now their shield's back up, and they're still alive. Oh no, they are dead. Okay, it was a different one. We see how, like, they're starting to group up now. This is where you're going to want to kind of use these to mitigate that. But that fire element to this is going to be an issue for me. So I'm going to go ahead and take them out with Karos, because we've already proven, like, I'm not going to be able to do anything outside of or using the cluster mines. I just can't. They're going to be flying the entire time. I'd have to ground them, which means now, okay, so I'll go ahead and ground them. They're on fire effect. I'm throwing those on there. They're probably going to die before. Yeah, it could have been hard to tell, but they definitely died before I even threw the cluster bomb on them, before it armed. I don't like the way it works now. I think this is working okay right now because I've got a recharge build and a very tanky build, so I'm able to get these charges back. But like, all these ones that are lying around that you're seeing, all this blue glow, these are unutilized resources, basically. That's kind of where I'm going to start going on a rant about efficiency about this, is because look at them all. They're not doing anything. They're literally just sitting there. So let's go ahead and get their shield down, and then I will ground them, and then we'll try and see if we can kill them. Like, the fire effect, and I don't know if because they're hovering if it's not going to hit them. No, it hit them. Okay, but it's still not doing a whole lot, and they're going to get... Okay, so it did kill them. But like, that kind of goes into, like, now I have to bring a fire element weapon to ground them, which I'm going to prime with that anyway, so why would I even bring this? There's definitely a possibility for a build here. I'm not saying there's not. There's definitely is. You just, it's going to fall in the same row as Sedina's Respite, where it's going to have to be like a specific like type of build. All right, so let's see against armored enemies. So because it's impact damage, this is probably where you're going to see some value. Is it's going to do a lot more damage against them than it would have against like any other enemy type. I'm going to have to take him out because these nades just aren't doing it. Or the cluster mines just really aren't doing it. So like, I don't know. Now that we're starting to like get down to like the smaller groups, the whole grouping reason why I came in here is kind of diminishing, and now I'm kind of okay, cool. So it's just me and the ranger, so we'll go up against them. But like without groups in here, this is kind of hard to use because like they're out of that. They're just completely out of it. All those that I just threw, they're all wasted resources. Did take down their shield though. That was pretty interesting. And because they are armored, it should be doing a little bit better damage against them. Getting about 17, so you know, okay. Still not all that great though. Now, granted, it's 17 per. Okay, I was like, what is going on here? They're doing their ult. It's 17 per proximity mine, which still isn't like great numbers, and that's because I've got a lot of additional gear or gear damage on this roll. So the initial damage, you can kind of look at it like I don't know where they're running. You can kind of look at it like Black Cannon, I guess. Okay, I don't know why I changed. Let me just go ahead and take down the shield. Okay, so each proximity mine does the associated damage that you've got rolls for and everything. So, I mean, if you can hit them with all, the problem is like very rarely are they ever gonna hit all of them. Just want to make sure their shield stays down. So like, I think it's because maybe their model's a little bit bigger, and that's why they're stepping on them. Most of the enemy types would not hit all those. So I guess one-on-one, it's okay. Oh, the shield came back. And then we'll see if we can take him down. So like right there, like I pretty much threw it right at their feet, but yeah, like a lot of them are just not, like it's more of a luck thing to get them to walk through all of them. I mean, I did take them down, so like it's not like it's completely useless and it's gonna hurt you more than anything, but I think it will. Once you get used to using it, I think it'll be okay. But I mean, it shouldn't. I don't think it should take that much work to try and like position yourself and throw them in a certain area and then expect them to like walk around them. I think these little sensors need to be much larger. There's only like a couple enemy types for strongholds that I think this is gonna be really useful against because they don't move. Is like Skelios in the Dome stronghold, the Scar one. The Undying is gonna be kind of wishy-washy because they can kind of teleport around the arena. The Monitor too, they can teleport as well. The Tyrant Queen crawls up walls and like jumps around, so like yeah, only like one stronghold boss is this really going to be consistent against, and that's only if their shield's down. So I don't know. Yeah. All right, let's do some check boxes, okay? Before I get crazy, going on rants. Okay, so is it efficient? It's got an okay recharge. It's not like you know, it's just kind of middle road. It's not like the highest. It's not the lowest. Compared to, well, I mean, there's nothing non-primer to compare it to other than a Ruthless Stalker. Okay, I guess we could compare it to that. So, Ruthless Stalker has a higher recharge than this one, so it's got a pretty good recharge, but it does significant. See, this is where I'm like with the basically the gear is if it's not going to prime or detonate, it should be doing like a lot more damage, where it's not. It's just doing okay damage, and that to me is like what doesn't really make sense about why they did that. So like Ruthless Stalker already does way more damage. It's got a more punishing recharge, but at the same time, like it also does something intrinsically. So it's a glaive, so it's going to seek out its targets, and then when you hit the target, it gives you Striker's Fury, which, you know, gives you increased damage, potentially melee damage, for associated amount of time at an associated amount of percentage. So like this, it's just wrong one. It just gives you another one. That's it. And then with the glaive, like when you throw it, it tracks towards an enemy. It doesn't necessarily track the enemy. Like it's not going to cut a 90 degree. It's not going to get thrown out and then cut 90 degrees to an enemy type. It's just kind of going to go in that general direction. So if it's not too far off, it will track to them and hit them. And when it hits them, you get your masterwork perk. Not too hard to use. With this, I have to position it so that it's right on their feet. but potentially in that time frame they could have moved, and now it's just a wasted charge. I get the charge back pretty quickly, but like you shouldn't have that kind of an issue, in my opinion. You shouldn't have an issue where basically you know you're going to waste it. Especially speaking on efficiency. Like, do you remember me pointing out while we were in here, like going up against all those groups, like they were just blue proximity mines all over the place, just spammed everywhere. And I was like, yep, no one's walking over those, and they're all out through like the central like walkway area, and it's not hitting anyone. So I'm gonna say no, this is not efficient. Even though it has a pretty decent recharge, it's like the middle of the road recharge. It's not middle of the road enough. And then like if you keep throwing these out and spamming them, eventually the game's just gonna like automatically consume them. So it's not like you could just like leave a whole row to the point, well, now I'm kind of seeing that you can. Yeah, so I guess if that's what you wanted to do, is just make a walkway, but now you have to assume that they're going to walk through here. And then like eventually the game will consume them because there is a timer on them. But like in when would you ever do that? Especially as like the quickest, most agile like javelin in the game. When would you do that? When would you ever just lay out a row of proximity mines, hoping like all the enemy types are going to walk right to you? Like, I don't know what scenario that would be. If you know, let me know. Put in some comments or something. But like, I can't think of a scenario where I'm not jumping around or moving constantly with the Interceptor, where I'm just like stationary, just throwing stuff around. That's me though. I guess that's my gameplay style. So maybe there's a style out there I'm not aware of. Anyways, moving on to viability. This is where you're gonna have a lot of issues because it's not gonna fit. Like, there's nothing about it other than it's just basic gear. Like it's almost like a weapon. Like, there's just nothing about it that makes me want to put it into a build. It doesn't do extra weak point damage. It doesn't track the weak points. It doesn't do any tracking of any kind. It just blows up like normal. Now it has the associated like 6 of these. So if you can get an enemy type to like walk over every single one of them, or at least walk through this like highlighted blue area, then yeah, you can do what, 4,000 damage per each one. So that could be a decent amount of damage. But in GM3, they're still going to have a lot of health, so that you're going to have to do that a lot, which means it's going to take a lot longer to kill off enemy types, which means if you're trying to get through a stronghold or something really quickly, that's probably not the way to go. So I'm going to say it's not really even, I wouldn't even say it's that viable. Just because its setup is so weird too. And they're like, I can't just constantly just spam them down. I'm like pressing right now, and there's a cooldown between using each one. So I don't know. And then is it fun? No, I don't think it's fun at all. That's my personal preference. Your preference is gonna, it could be different for you, but I don't think it's fun at all. So I think this is like the second piece of gear for the Interceptor that I've given the big old thumbs down to. Sadine's Respite was the other one, but Sadine's Respite, at least it's in a different gear slot, but at least like there are builds around that one. I don't know if the build would be specific towards Sadine's Respite, so you have to dedicate a lot of resources to that one gear piece, which is already kind of not desirable. But it still has a build, kind of like Flat Cannon too. Flat Cannon's the exact same thing. It's really good at both those builds are really good at weak point damage, and you can definitely take down very stout GM3 enemies pretty respectively easy with that. Where with this, like, you can't even make a build around it. I've been trying to dedicate a build to this gear piece. I don't know what to use. Like, I don't even know what roles I would need to make it better. Like, it just overall sucks. And I don't care for it all that much. I had to bring other gear pieces and other item pieces to basically do things that this should be able to do that it doesn't, to help me survive. Like, it actually was detrimental to my build and made me have to create a build around basically doing something that's going to negatively affect me. So I don't know. I don't think I need to go on a rant for this anymore. I feel like with all the gear that I usually have a problem with, I go on like a super long rant, and it's kind of just a waste of time. So I'm gonna try and keep this one a little bit shorter. But I already gave a thumbs down. I don't know if you guys have a build, or you know of a build running around, or some kind of a meta for it, let me know. I would definitely do a part 2 on this if need be. I don't think that's going to happen though, but I'm always up for a challenge, so let me know. And I'm Defeated Rescue, and hope to see you guys out on Bastion.